quote, under socialism, you would not be allowed to be poor. You would be forcibly fed, clothed, lodged, taught, and employed whether you liked it or not. If it were discovered that you had not character and industry enough to be worth all of this trouble, you might possibly be executed in a kindly manner, but whilst you were permitted to live, you would have to live well.
Researching isms is like going down a rabbit hole, because the more you learn about one, the more it splashes onto the other. But anyway, I researched one over cultural Marxism the other day, only to discover this one. Now, I'd known about Fabian socialism for a long time, but I had no idea how ubiquitous it is. It's literally everywhere, and it shares a lot of commonalities with the former, being a pattern of gradualism. However, unlike cultural Marxism, Fabianism seeks to use the democratic process to incrementally absorb a society, while cultural Marxism seeks to literally destroy it. Anyway, these guys are everywhere, literally. And in this video, I'm going to present them. Oh, and that ensign to the right there, it's their symbol. It's a literal wolf in sheep's clothing. So anyway, there they are, hiding in plain sight. So, continuing on. The Fabians had their beginning in 1883 in England by Edith Nesbit, Hubert Bland, and Edward Pease, who decided to form a socialist debate club named after the Roman general Quintus Fabius Maximus. General Fabius decided that weakening the opponent through small incremental skirmishes was better technique than full head-to-head battles. Rather than the expense of a large force, a small contingency could achieve the desired outcome over a longer length of time. Now, there's old Quintus right there, Fabius. He's standing there, and he's got a little sun sign on his armor there. And over here's Hannibal. Now, they couldn't whoop Hannibal. No matter how many armies they sent against old Hannibal, no matter how much they outnumbered him, he'd kick their ass. In one battle at Cannae, they sent an army of 80,000 men against him, and he only had like about 30 or 40,000, and he annihilated the whole army in a single day. I mean, almost no one escaped. They couldn't whoop him. So anyway, that's how he decided to fight Hannibal, just a little at a time, chipping away at him. And anyway, that's how the movement began. Almost without a doubt, the Fabian Society has been the most successful political movement since the Founding Fathers. Through their stated policy of gradualism, the modern world has been on a steady transformation into a socialist-based system, both economically and socially. And I'd said they're everywhere. Here are a few of them, just a few. And you can recognize most of them. This guy down here on the bottom is Sadiq Khan. He's the mayor of London. And over here's Tony Blair. He was the former Prime Minister of England. And these guys, you know, they're in education, they're in government, they're in law enforcement. The Fabian Society has permeated our society. And when you see the fruition of their stated goals, you're not going to like it. In 1920, the Fabians formed the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, primarily to combat the arrest and deportation of communists and also to promote leftist judicial activism. One of its founders was Supreme Court Justice and Fabian socialist Felix Frankfurter. It was Felix Frankfurter who advocated the concept of judicial activism before his elevation to the court in 1932 under Franklin Roosevelt. This idea transformed the intended purpose of the court from interpretation of the law to creation of new laws through leftist interpretation. This, of course, was one of the early goals of the Fabians, to break down the separation of powers. Judicial activism gives the courts the traditional judicial power as well as new power to legislate, all the while separated from the voter. Yeah, old Frankfurter, he was a hot dog, all right. The Fabians played a large part in the organizing the major teachers' union, including the National Education Association, the American Federation of Teachers, and the American Association of University Professors. Fabian Socialists, along with the cultural Marxists, received a tremendous boost from the tax-exempt foundations, the Ford Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, and the Carnegie Foundation. See, big corporations don't care who's running things. They don't care which ism is going to run things as long as they're on the top calling the shots. And so they started pumping money into the Fabians and the cultural Marxists, the Frankfurt School, and from there, it just took off. Money is the lifeblood of politics. The centerpiece of the collective estate is the welfare establishment, which serves two purposes. Most important, people must be made dependent on the government. It's kind of like a pusher giving out free dope to get people hooked. Then, see, he can hold it back to make you do what he wants you to do. And then the second aim of collectivism is to punish the individualist person for achieving wealth. And of course, we've all seen that. Okay, now we come to George Bernard Shaw, the face of Fabianism, in its nascency anyway. He was one of the granddaddies of the whole thing. Shaw's involvement in the Fabian Society was instrumental in shaping its intellectual direction and public image. He edited one of the Society's most famous tracts, Fabian Essays in Socialism, published in 1889, which laid out the Society's vision for a socialist society. So let's just see what the old boy has to say here. Let's see.
The popular British playwright Bernard Shaw supported Hitler in the mass media. The left supported Hitler not because he deceived them. They knew Hitler would kill. He said he would. In fact, it was why they supported him.
You must all know half a dozen people at least who are no use in this world, who are more trouble than they are worth. Just put them there and say, sir or madam, now will you be kind enough to justify your existence? If you can't justify your existence, if you're not pulling your weight in the social vote, if you're not producing as much as you consume, or perhaps a little more, then clearly we cannot use the big organization of our society for the purpose of keeping you alive, because your life does not benefit us, and it can't be of very much use to yourself.
Full of himself, huh? Let's continue.
It must be said, though, that Bernard Shaw, as well as the left in general, fundamentally opposed Nazism, because Hitler had distorted Marxism beyond recognition. Gassing people based on their nationality was absolutely inexcusable. The selection should be based on class. Hitler got it all wrong. Absolutely different people needed to be killed.
Okay, so they disliked the Nazis not because they killed folks, but because they killed the wrong folks. It's kind of like, I heard a rabbi the other day, an Israeli rabbi, talking about, and I swear to God he said it. He said Hitler wasn't wrong. He just was on the wrong side. You know, I mean, ugh. And so let's continue on.
Appeal to the chemists to discover a humane gas that will kill instantly and painlessly. Deadly by all means, but humane, not cruel. After 10 years, such gas will be discovered. It will be called Cyclone B. The man who oversaw its practical application, Adolf Eichmann, will later testify that thanks to Cyclone B, people in Auschwitz died without pain. Cyclone B was a humane gas. Yes, Eichmann will use the very same words.
Nice guys, huh? But let's continue on. Let's see what they thought of our country and our way of life.
It's no good in this country putting questions of national importance to me. I've been here before. I told you what to do and you haven't done it. And you're up to your neck in trouble in consequence. I told you in New York, I put it to you very carefully and exactly. I told you that what you had in doing this country was to abolish your constitution, which was preventing you from doing anything. And now you see what's happened since. Every attempt you've made to do anything, the Supreme Court immediately stops it and says it's against the Constitution. Well, I tell you again, get rid of your Constitution. But I suppose you won't do it. You have a good president and you have a bad Constitution. And the bad Constitution gets the better of the good president all the time.
So he didn't like our Constitution. Good. I'd say our Constitution was doing precisely what it was intended to do and working precisely in the matter intended. Yeah. And, you know, today it still is, hopefully, for a lot longer.
It's not necessary for me always to look as genial as I'm trying to look now. Of course, I can put on the other thing. For instance, now if you watch me, I can put on that imposing look that terrifies, the Mussolini look. But now just watch. I can take it off.